seconds. View the room. Admit all. All right. Now, as everyone's coming, spotlight me. Admit all. All right. Now, while that's moving, this. Go ahead. Move over. And out a little bit. Ooh, guess that'll work. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. All right. And while everyone's coming in, let's see. Tell me what's going on in the world today. Nothing? All right, let's see what's going on Blackboard then. It's Crim Law I. See this over here. Make sure everybody's in here. Looks like it. It is 9 o'clock. Let's go ahead and share screen. Okay, so you guys see the same thing I do. So, class videos, those should be uploaded now. Part 1's available. Part 2, chapter 1, chapter 2 kind of thing. Quizzes. I've got a quiz out there for you and an assignment. We'll talk about that one real quick. That one's a fun one. So this will be your first excursion into the statutes a little bit. So what this is it's a story, not unlike what you'd see in a case brief kind of thing where they give you the facts of a case. Okay? Not a real story. It is heavily based off of one though, not any recent one. It'd be several decades back and in a different state kind of thing. So it's kind of funny. What you're going to see there is there's a number of people involved, a number of actions. Any number of those things could or could not be crime, depending on how you want to look at it, how you would classify what's taking place there. So what you'll have to do is you'll have to go to the internet and find out what if these things would actually be crimes. I'm not going to give any more directions there because I want to see what you do. So that's going to give me some idea for what you know, right? Everyone comes at things a little bit differently. We're in methods class. I'll kind of talk about that later. Ooh. Admit. More people. Admit. All right. And then from there, let's see, last time we were talking about, I'm going to go ahead and download these things. I can't remember what I actually need and what I don't. It doesn't download. Click here. I don't see any movement. There it goes. And then this one. I think. Is it going to download? It did. Okay, excellent. Yeah, I don't care about all that just yet. And we can stop sharing for a minute. Yay. The last time is a very high. Let's do this. And then am I touching the, there we go. It is moving. It's just very laggy on that. Okay, cool. So those elements of crime were when we talked about last time, we finished up with. Yeah, so we had act, and then we started moving to intent, right? We also had there's some type of harm kind of thing, concurrence. There might be other things involved too. Actions. We're starting to talk about how far those go. What all types of things do they include? From the outset, it's basically anything from an action to what? I did something. Yay. I added to it. There are other ways things can go? Let's think about directions here. This is one. It's a methods lesson. What's a different direction? Yeah. Now, when we start talking about that, that itself is also an act, isn't it? Taking. That's a different type of act, different way to classify it, right? Here we could also be talking about an act omitted, right? I should have done something, but I didn't. Right? Some type of duty, betrayed, something like that. Are there any places where it's like, yeah, do I really have a duty here, but we're going to make one anyway? I set up a mouse trap, right? Put it in the middle of my floor. Actually, I put it under something. Family came over, they brought their dogs. I forgot it was under there. What? Right? I forgot something. I had done something, I forgotten something. There was a danger there that I knew that I had responsibility to take care of, right? Are there any instances where it's not necessarily a danger that you might have created? You need to take something, still need to take care of. Good Samaritan stuff, right? We'll get into that later in the semester. Anywhere we get into Good Samaritan laws, it's like, did you do anything to really contribute to this, to give you any type of duties where it really would be in your debt? It would be your fault if you don't get involved. Not always, but you can still be held responsible, right? So looking at the ways things can go all kinds of different ways, positive, negative, different directions, different types. The range is there, all the way from something to the absence of something. So something to nothing to less than nothing. Okay. Intents are a little bit different. I'm trying to remember the way I have it set up in these kinds of chapters thing. I think I go off to a different direction before I get into this, but we'll talk about this first. So your intent, it's pretty intense if you have it. You know? We talked about that in one of the first classes where I talked about the alignment thing. That's one of the biggest things that will dictate the gravity of one's actions in our system. Not always the case, historically speaking. That's a really big element of it. Here we can't ever know what's going on in someone's mind. Ever. If they confess to it, maybe then. How many false confessions are there? Yeah. So people lie everywhere. Okay. What do we do? Has ever encountered the liar before? What do you do? Why are you so quiet? You not call out lies? You should probably do that whenever you see a lie. The hell is that? That's a lie. Yeah. Because if you do that, then you can start to make that difference between what is real, what isn't, who's lying, who's not, that kind of stuff. Different ways that people do it. Different ways that people weigh things. Ways to weigh. Good grief. Gracious. Usually it's talked about the interactions of means, motive, and opportunity, that kind of thing. Do you have the ability to, some reason to, and an opportunity to, right? As those things start to stack up, people start to try to make those inferences between all things. They try to make connections between things to understand what your intent is. That underlying connection there. You're back down here again, right? That's that connection. That is paramount. With it, you have something. Without it, you may also have something. In a different vein, it might be something completely different. This thing here can take your actions from being the most criminal to being the most heroic. What do I mean by that? What's the worst crime in the land? Yeah. What do our heroes do? Well, yeah.
Mass shooting?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah. It's like, think about war heroes. Kill a lot of people. War. Okay, that's a little bit different. What changed? This thing. That's it. That's it. Circumstances matter. Yeah. We're talking about that kind of stuff. I think that's a good segue for what's actually in chapter 1, if I remember correctly. Let's see. Civil versus criminal. I'll actually share that with you as I'm talking about stuff too. Where's this thing at? right here, share. All right. Let's move this out of the way a little bit so you guys can see here. Do that. Okay, cool. That's enable editing. I'll find typos in here. I always do. All right. You got the two differences between the two. We've already talked about them to some degree, right? The biggest being they're two different systems. They operate different. There's a lot of similarities in that it's a system that's functional. Because basically what we start talking about here. It's functional, but everything varies. Who brings the cases, the rules of play, that moral aspect of it. Kind of time that back over in here to some degree. We'll get back to that in a second. Here, emphasis. This one's maybe punishment. We'll talk about that in a second. This one's money. Compensation. Right? Give me something. Penalty up to death. Just money. Here it is. Your goals. Instead as a punishment. There are a few different goals that this serves. Retribution, incapacitation, deterrence, rehabilitation. Depending on what perspective you take, you see different things in it. One of those things. It's really kind of interesting in life, the reciprocity between understanding things and I don't want to get into that. That's a methods thing. Like as you learn that, it shapes your perspective. Some you should be very careful with that. Rehabilitation. What is that? I want to rehabilitate. What's going to happen?
You're going to be like re-educated.
Maybe, right? Some way made better, according to whom? Is one of those big questions. You say it that way. Re-educated. Yeah, it's like that pulls up a different kind of meaning. Here they say reforming. It's a reform thing. We're gonna make it better. Rehabilitation. It's like medical. It's gonna work. It's gonna work like it's supposed to. Maybe. Deterrence and incapacitation. We'll start with deterrence. What is deterrence? I'm going to deter something.
Like keep it from happening.
Yeah. This is one's pretty easy in some ways, really hard in others. Speeding, right? If I put an empty police car out at an intersection, everyone slows down. Yeah, okay. So that does work to some degree. Maybe. There's some questions about that though, because if you really look at increases in policing and whether it actually does any deterrence, that stuff, you get all kinds of all over the place. Incapacitation. What does that look like? Inside of a prison. Yeah. Jail cell for the short term while you're in trial processes. But yeah. You'll end up in prison, that kind of thing. So chains, walls, bars, all that kind of stuff. That one works because you can't prevent any more crimes, right? Well, well, not out in society. You can still do that in prison. In theory, you can't do it out in society. Historically, take the hands from a thief. Still do that in some places. A top one. Retribution. That's one. Should that be one? Permits society's governing body to impose a punishment on criminal offenders. Recognizes an appropriate reason for punishment by Furman versus Georgia. 1970. That's a death penalty case. Okay, what is retribution?
As like revenge.
Yeah, makes me feel better. Valid reason, right? Do two wrongs make a right? You may say that. I don't know. Okay. Here's where we start getting into more of that morality stuff because it's going to level this entire thing because that's the one thing that is relatively relative. I said, depending on the circumstances, murder is on the table. It just needs the right circumstances. Criminal law morality. Are certain acts within the purview of criminal law? Is that a question of how bad is it? Is it bad in itself, or is it bad just because we prohibit it? We prohibit it. Do we actually prohibit something bad, or are we just prohibiting stuff? It's one of those interesting things that you can see in society. Probably from a perspective that you guys would get a little bit more familiar with. Maybe you remember it. Maybe. Any smokers in here? Anybody smoke cigarettes? Tobacco, pipe, shoots back. No, okay. Interesting. How old is everyone in this room? I wonder. I'm not going to ask that as a question. How old do you have to be able to purchase that stuff?
21.
Why? Why? No, make a choice for yourself. Why? Oh, it's better that way. Better. Let me make a choice for you. Or just, is it really bad? Not healthy. Oh, so I should be able to choose what's healthy for you. Get ready for new diets. Right? This kind of stuff you start getting in when you start to draw these lines, you can see how far it will go. There we go. Bad in itself, those are just prohibited. Those in bad of itself, bad in itself. They'll say murder, rape, battery, arson, that kind of stuff. So you can still find the reasons to excuse it. But as a general rule, people will look at that as bad. Prohibited. Alcohol, drugs, prostitution, those types of things. Are they good or are they bad? Alcohol. Good or bad? You tell me. Ooh. How old do you have to be to drink alcohol? Okay. So it's just as bad as tobacco, right? It's one of those things. It doesn't quite make sense, but there's something there. And we'll look into that. Okay. Prostitution, is that good or bad? You guys don't know? You serious? It's like asking what came first, the chicken or the egg? Do you guys not know that one either? Which one came first? How long has the chicken been around? How long has there been a chicken? Okay. How long ago was the first egg? Oh shit. Different way of looking at it. Yeah, it's not anything to do with the chicken itself. It's the concept of an egg is long, long before the chicken. Like genetic memory, is it a thing? Did what your parents learn affect you? Of course. Okay. Also, if we really think about genetic memory, it's instinct. If I show a kid a snake, it gets afraid. Why is that? It's never seen a snake before. Show it to Indiana Jones, he'll do the same thing. Right? He studied a whole bunch of stuff. I can understand that a little bit. Kid, though, what's that about? Right? There's something there. You're in the state of Nevada. Prostitution. Why not look that bad to you? Why? Are you bringing in tax money off of it? Are you tied in with that kind of stuff? Are you looking to profit off that? Are you engaged in that industry? I'm sure they love it. Right? What are you selling? It's like, yeah, it's kind of nasty. Very nasty. There's some morality there, maybe. I don't know. Oh, that reminds me of Ohio State University 4 years ago. I don't know if they still do this, but every year they used to have was it a spring semester kind of thing? I can't remember. They'd have a sex week kind of thing. It was one of those things that's really interesting because it's all about sex ed. One of the biggest ones that they'd gotten a whole lot of attention for was teaching how to use OnlyFans to make money. You're teaching them prostitution. Are you serious? You are. They did that. You can look that up online right now. It's like, yeah, that's not good. I wouldn't think. I don't know. There's some relative nature to that one, I guess. I don't know. How we deal with it. Oh, we didn't actually talk about that there. I'm just a little surprised. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because we talk about some of this stuff, see if it gets into it. It did. I'll talk about it. Nope, there it is down here. Here's what jumps back into it a little bit. Where you'll start to see morality come back in, how we grade things. I'm not sure. Yeah, I must be sharing it. Grade of offenses, felonies versus misdemeanors. But this guy's a felon. We have a term for that. Identifying a person as that. They're just committing misdemeanors. What do you call them? I don't know. I know felon though. Ooh, might be something associated with that. Moral turpitude. Well, it's moral sentiments, acceptable moral standards, community. That's what they're talking about there. The felonies and misdemeanors are one way that we make that distinction. The more serious stuff we place into two more serious categories. Not always as direct, not always as directly tied to the morality aspects of it, or necessarily the physical harms associated with such. Where things get really weird. If I said you're going to have to take something that makes no sense to actually compare and put them into a system where you have to compare it, that's this thing to some degree. Okay. How many kidnappings is worth a murder? Well, you're going to be sentenced to time at some point in time, right? I'm going to have to be looking across people, across things to see if all this stuff's fair. Right? In theory, that's how the system should work. The process itself should be the same across people. It should be possible to do that. Okay. Punishment associated with one rape is equivalent to how many juvenile molestations? Yeah, that's nasty. Right? That's to some degree what we've had to do in this system. Does not always work well. And realize what you're dealing with. Very, very, very dark things. Okay. That moral turpitude, that's baked into the system, right? Back, well, here and there and there, but really right there when you start getting into this stuff, getting the political side of politics, where you have your votes and that kind of stuff. Because what happens is those you elect into power, they make the rules. The legislators do, right? So if you want to find out where the rules are, where do you need to look? I'll help you with assignment one moment. That question. Should probably look that question. No, I'm just kidding. I'd start with your state legislative websites. Okay. Some of the stuff we talked about, police discretion. So discretion is a general concept. Anytime you run into it, where one individual has some type of authority to make some type of decision that changes the flow of things. Right? It's within your discretion to make this decision. Police are the first line because, hey, we all start out on the street at some point in time, right? Whether that's a crime that's in the street or that investigation and that kind of stuff. Prosecutorial, do we charge? What are the charges? Huge amount of power here, right? Whether you file, what exactly it's going to look like when you file. Indictment's the same kind of process. They're going to drop the case, reduce charges, they're going to stack them up, that kind of thing. Where I talk about how any one action can violate multiple laws, multiple systems. File stacking, charge stacking is a thing where I'm just going to charge you with everything. So that way, when you see just how much I can actually get you with if we go to trial, you won't go to trial because the danger there is too much for you. Right? Take the next 6 months for this misdemeanor, or I'm going to make sure that you spend at least the next 6 years here. And it's going to be painful throughout the entire thing, and it's expensive. How many people take the deal? Well, they said, what is it, 90-something%, 98? I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember. Over 90? Don't ever go to trial. Kind of a problem. Okay. Judge. Whether it's you, set bail, please. For juvenile stuff, see. Dismiss charges, impose sentences, revoke probation. So we start getting into the thick of it. Okay. We know about those roles. We talked about those things already. Starting to get the morality of it. Starting to see how it all fits. We talked about that one. It's not that. Limitations. So this is some stuff that's pretty important when we deal with criminal statutes. Different ways you can invalidate the law itself. So there are 3 different ways that can do that when you're dealing with the case. The law, the facts, the person. Well, here's the law, so we're gonna deal with the laws. Void for vagueness. Big characteristics right there. Overly broad and vague. Who does it apply to? What does it apply to? And when does it apply? That kind of thing. I'm not gonna type them. Okay, first one, fair notice. This is why if you pay attention, you'll see that anytime that there is any type of act passed, there's a date that's enacted and you're notified of it to some degree. It's posted on websites, might be in newspapers, might be in all kinds of things, right? There's always going to be some type of time period there before it actually takes place. That way you have fair notice. If it takes place immediately, ooh, that's not reasonable for people to know that without notice. Kind of thing. Ignorance is not an excuse, but it can be a reason for not understanding. Arbitrary and discriminatory enforcement is what the next one is. Yeah, you can't tell with this when it would apply or who it would apply to. Honestly, the first one that comes to my mind is one you guys already committed. That's the COVID stuff. We're going to close this kind of stuff down. Okay. How is that not arbitrary and discriminatory? In some of the places, like whenever that was going socially, yes, if you were paying attention, you probably saw things like California. Movie industry, you can have catering outside, big spreads of tables. Your actual business restaurant, even though you have outside tables and all that kind of stuff, looks exactly the same. You can't use it because you're a different industry. You matter less to the state. Ooh. Seems like that. Seems like that's arbitrary and discriminatory. Yeah. It's an emergency. Yeah, whatever. Well, let's not deny people their First Amendment rights, or really. That's interesting. I'll drop that one and move forward. Ex post facto. Every now and again we run into Latin in here. It's after the fact. It's ex post facto. What that means is if a behavior isn't criminal at the time, you can't make it criminal and then go punish the person for committing the act beforehand. We'll do that. Time ordering things very, very sensitive. Realize in this country or in history, that's not always the case. Sometimes we get things out of order and we flip things around. That kind of stuff. Yeah. Bill of Attainder is defined as a legislative act which inflicts punishment without a judicial trial. So we do see that term. It's yeah, you're just getting punishment. There's no trial here at all. Can't give a good example of that. Actually, I can't think of one in this country. I can think of a few, but not from this country. Boom. Next up. Repeals or amendments to the Constitution that changes your constitutional rights. You're already familiar with that. Usually, the people pointing out is Prohibition era, that kind of stuff, because there are a lot of changes in that time frame. Next one: cruel and unusual punishment. So, what is cruel and what is unusual? It's just cruel. It's unusual. Does it need to be both? We don't know. In most instances, you'll get the case by case level. So it says difficult to define. So what you start dealing with is proportionality and what is the actual punishment, right? Torture is not used in theory, right? So anything that's unnecessary is usually where you start looking at. It's like, does it get the job done, or is it something excessive? Maybe. What is it in relation to, right? I'll use that as an example. Think about kids. If I go and harass a kid, one of my kids, I do this stuff. Walk in or sneak in there, walk on and okay. Won't see me again for half an hour. Won't see me coming either. Just okay, and I'm gone again. See the back of me as I'm running away. After I've done that a few times, eventually what's going to happen is that kid's going to turn around and throw a punch at me. Right? Say it lands. How hard is it? I don't know. Does it make me smile or does it make me unhappy? Right? Was that proportional to what I was doing? Yeah, then I'm probably smiling. Right? It's not. Ooh, what happened there? On this side, it's like I've done something wrong. What I'm getting, an equal thing to it. That one, I can't remember Georgia was from, same kind of thing, death penalty stuff. What can we sentence you to death for? Nothing that doesn't include death, right? That's kind of a problem in our country and in history across all places. Due process, equal protection, and right to privacy. Due process, that kind of thing's 14th Amendment stuff. Actually, let me say there. Basically, it's the same kinds of things. May not be defined or enforced unreasonable, capricious, arbitrary manner, that kind of thing. Large body of cases, of course. Privacy itself, penumbra of multiple rights. There is no specific right to privacy, but if you look at the overlaps between those there, boom, there you go, you've got privacy. Formally recognized first in Griswold versus Connecticut. We've already talked about these things. I talked about jury nullification. I didn't talk about the mistrial process. Okay, so you have this trial. As they're going through this trial, you have to establish these things here, whatever crime it is. As you go through, let's say, check, 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 check. You've established all those things to be factually the case. What happens? Present question mark. What happens? What are the jurors and the jury going to say? This person committed the act. He has the requisite intent. The harm that was supposed to have been met has been, and all these things align together. What's your verdict? Say it. Why are you so sensitive to say it? Why is everyone so quiet to say it? You know what the word is, say it. Yeah. Okay, that's one option. Right? What are your other options?
Not guilty.
Yeah. You have guilty. You have not. Any other options? Mistrial. Right? This one is in theory positive. This one increases your numbers. And then mistrial. This one you can do it all over again. It's also positive, right? I'm having fun. That's a methods thing. I can classify all those things as positive, negative. Usually when you say that, people mean different things. That part doesn't matter. Yet. Okay. This thing happens. What happens next? Do we have a new trial? Depends on whether the prosecutor wants it. Prosecutorial discretion. Let's retry this case. I think we'll get conviction next time. Okay. How many times they get a redo? Okay. Okay, let's do it this way. How many times can they convict you or try you again after you get this verdict right here? How many times? Yeah, they can't do it again, right? Well, if they're punishing you, they're probably not going to convict you for the same thing again. Doesn't mean they can't bring up different charges then. But whatever. Usually that's it. This one, there is no limit. I can retry it as many times as I think there's public interest to. Welcome to the system. That's lawfare. This is on the criminal side. If you want to do it there, if you've got a prosecutor who wants to do something of their own volition, kind of thing, to their own intents. You can see that all over the place. You won't ever have to leave. One of those things that's really interesting to think about if you think back to televised kinds of cases you might have seen that could have easily have gone this way. It's like you throw it this way and you think you might be getting this right here into the prosecutorial side. That might be a good strategy. Like, I will get to start over again. And just keep you here a little bit longer. There's no escape. You want us to run evil? It's pretty easy. All right, that's chapter 1. Let's go to chapter 2. Downloads. Here we think. Elements of a crime. Yeah, here we go. Actus reus, mens rea, concurrence, causation. There we go. Harm is also involved too. That's when you start getting the liability. That's going to be what it causes, kind of thing. When you get to liabilities, there's also the reciprocity between duty and the harm itself, kind of thing. I can't remember if we get the liability stuff in here. Sometimes that'll come in, sometimes it won't. But liability and response, actually it does. It comes in this chapter now. Think about it. Liability is another word for responsibility to some degree. What are you responsible for? One, and what am I liable for? Right. Act, intent, occurrence, causation must be all there directly. Act. That's right there. So it's not a thought, it's not a status. Right? This person's under the influence of drugs. That's not a crime. Is it? Is it illegal to be under the influence of drugs? No.
Not really.
Maybe drunk driving.
That's it. Depends on what you're doing. Right? Ooh, yeah. Right? Typically what we call out are like the driving, the kinds of stuff where you get to behaviors that you know are going to cause danger there. That kind of stuff. Okay? Ooh, thoughts. Can you punish thoughts? You guys don't read much history, do you? That's a scary one. Ooh. No. Okay. Yeah. To some degree, you can look at peoples and their cultures and the ideas that they hold as being somewhat synonymous. Think about religious groups. Oh, that hasn't happened in history. Religious persecution. Yeah, that's kind of stuff like that. That's what you start talking about really, really fast, right? More literary things. Like I said, face crime. What is a face crime? You guys don't even read George Orwell. Oh my goodness. Okay, that's 1984. Good book on if you want to know a little bit about hell. Basically, what that one was is the systems they had there gotten so strict that if your face showed the wrong emotion for what you were being told, yeah, you're a criminal. So if you're not paying attention, the actual lesson there is be careful what you're actually punishing there, because sometimes you're not punishing what you think you are, you're punishing the idea, or you're just being evil. I've actually seen people do that. Like that was a face crime. You just tried to find a person. That kind of thing. Like, yeah, you don't get to do that. That's a wrongful termination. That kind of stuff. Let's see. Failure to act can be considered criminal. Involuntary acts. You had no control over it. Depending on like the DUI stuff. You put yourself into that situation. Someone else drugged you. Guess what? You're not responsible for that. wait a second. I took an Ambien before I went to bed, and I got back up later, and that's when I did it. Ooh. Am I responsible for that? Okay, corpus delicti, body of the crime. Sometimes it's a body. You're doing murder sometimes. Sometimes it's the absence of a body. That's also sometimes you're doing murder. Right? Corroborating evidence. Sometimes it's not tangible. It gives an example there of conspiracy. That's an agreement kind of thing. Intent. Here's where you go. General versus specific. Right? That's the first level right there. That's just you did it willfully. More specific. It's not just willful. You did it on purpose. Let's take a step there. So you start out with negligent, recklessly, knowingly, purposefully. Negligently, not paying attention. I carelessly gave people access to some secured classified information. Right? Didn't do it on purpose. I just wasn't aware of the risk. Okay. I know we have security things in place. I'm going to skip all of those because I think it's a hassle. Right? I'm going to add in that back door to my email address here. University gets hacked. Ooh, I was the point of entry. I'm responsible. I did it. I'm reckless. Knowingly. When do you know something? Good God, I feel like I'm back in philosophy class. Usually it's when a reasonable person knows that that's going to be the outcome. Right? You know what this is going to do. I'm going to take this hammer in my hand and I'm going to swing it over this way. You ever do that, kid? I'm going to swing my hands around this way. I'm going to walk towards you. I'm just walking this way. If you don't move, you're in my way. Ow! Well, I told you to move. It's your fault. No. No. You know exactly what was going to happen when you set out with that thing in motion. Right? You did that. When you were in your car, you saw that person in the crosswalk that you didn't like. You stepped on the gas. You knew exactly what the hell that was going to do. Right? No, you weren't planning on being there and run the person over. Just that opportunity presented itself, and that feels a little heavy. Yeah. Okay. Purposefully. More. How much planning? How much time? Right? Murder in the first versus murder in the second. Somebody's dead all the same. How much thought went into it's going to be a little bit different. The thoughts really do matter. Right? Concurrence. This is kind of like time. The temporal order is a major facet of life. It matters here, how it lines up. It says, in every crime, there must be union or joint operation of act and intent, or at least negligence. Someone's stupid. They're responsible for that stupid. Yes. All the result of the act need not occur at the same time. Right. Here in the day was an old holdover from basically when there was no medicine. Right. I shot this person in the leg. It's not going to kill him. The infection will. I'm not so worried about that. That person's going to be on their way out. Right. That means here is you shot someone in the spine. They're now paralyzed. Right. Is that while you're awaiting trial, is that a life or a death sentence? They've had a few surgeries. They're pulling through. They're going to be paralyzed. Right. So it's just an attempted murder. Right. Okay. Something happens and they die. It's complication related to their paralysis. Are you now a murderer? Unknown. Is it a direct complication? A direct complication from you shooting them? Or do they get stuck out in the woods and they can't move because the wheelchair they're on broke. Right? Wildly different things, same results. Different meetings, gotta pull it out. Okay. My favorite thing to ask you, because it sounds almost inappropriate. What exactly is a but for? I'm only 12 years old again. The but for concept. I like it. Because I now know exactly what a but for is. That doesn't sound right at all. In that specific example I gave you beforehand, that direct complication, that person only died because of your actions. This would be an interceding incident kind of thing. It's like, they died in surgery related to it, but it wasn't that. It was, the doctor went to cut into the spine instead of going to the lumbar region where the actual bullet wound is. He went into the cervical region. Just took the guy's head right off for some reason. He just was crazy. Yeah, he wouldn't have been there, but for me. But that's actually what killed him. He'd have been alive, but for the doctor taking his head off. And it's like, that's disturbing. That's that intervening act. Right? Next up, attendant circumstances. Those are things that surround a crime. Depending on what the crime is, there might be other things that are required there. Usually when you start talking about that, you start getting into aggravating and mitigating circumstances, things that make it better or worse, right? Here it gives you an example of attendant circumstances that might change things in different ways. Historically, in the confines of marriage, rape didn't exist. Oh, of course it did. Boy, did it, right? Couldn't deal with it because of the way the statutes were defined, the way that it was handled. If that was a factor on that case, then you can't pursue this at all. Sometimes it's other stuff. So aggravating circumstances, mitigating circumstances, that kind of stuff. Liability. 3 types. Strict, vicarious, enterprise. Really what it is strict is like direct. That's you. You're responsible for you. Sometimes you're not just responsible for you. Sometimes a whole group of people are responsible. Let's basically start getting out there, right? Vicarious, one person held responsible for the actions of another. Enterprise. Basically, start getting out there is it your supervisor's responsibility for this action that you've taken? Sometimes it is. It's called training. You have it poorly. There you go. Same thing here. Do you know that this is something you should be training for as an organization itself? Yes. Is it there? No. Ooh, organization itself, enterprise liability. Right? Responsibility is to some degree like control. Right? If you're responsible for something, you have some influence on it. Not always is it as clear as that, though, because there's give and take there. There's percentages if you want to look at it that way. Here, what you'll start to see is, yeah, sometimes I am responsible for the actions of others. I have some influence there, maybe. I don't know. And that should get you all ready for where is that at? Bing. This right here. Quiz. Yes. So 1 week from today, I actually spelled that correctly, Wednesday. Quiz 1 on chapters 1 and 2. 3 attempts. 1 hour time limit. Only a few questions. You'll have time to review PowerPoints. I can still look things up. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Assignment 1 is available, and you have at least a week on that one too. I think I might have even made that due the following week. I don't remember. Yeah, I did it 16. So you got a little extra time on that one. With that, have a great day. I'll see you next week. Bye. I don't know. Honestly. Stop share. And yeah.